Be careful. You might learn something.
Let's go.
You are now tuned in to the Factual Opinions Podcast with your host, I am Pharaoh. Straight facts.
Welcome back, World Factual Opinions Podcast. This is Season 5, Episode 8. I called it Scott Van Pelt. Most people may not know why. I'm going to explain why. I thought I was going to have to do this one by myself, like the Sports Center 11 o'clock episode with Scott Van Pelt himself. So I named it in his honor. But as you can see, for right now, I do have my regular co-host, the Brown Bruce Wayne Big John.
Yes, sir. What's up?
We may have an appearance from Will West, the Best Nate. Also, we may have an appearance from, as I refer to him, the original Factual Opinions Brain Thrust, Mr. Curtis Worthen, a.k.a. Kurt Cortez, the co-founder of the original Factual Opinions podcast. But for right now, it's your host, I am Pharaoh, rocking out with the Brown Bruce Wayne Big John. And we have a lot of things I want to get started with today. First of all, why did Vice President J.D. Vance drop my trophy like that? Did you see that on the news?
Mm-hmm. It's a mess, man.
He claimed he did it because he didn't want anybody else to be able to get the trophy after the Buckeyes. I'm like, okay, great way to play it off, sir. But you of all people, as an Ohioan, should have a firmer grip on that trophy.
Right.
Some people said they were surprised that the Buckeyes actually went. I was not. College is a little bit different than pros when it comes to that.
Right.
And as mentioned, almost right on time, the original brain thrust of Factual Opinions podcast, Kurt Cortez. And can I have them glasses, man?
What's going on?
What's going on, brother? How you?
I'm good, man. I just decided to try to join from my phone, and I was able to get in. It's not working on this computer for some reason.
Well, we're glad to have you, brother, man. It's been quite a while.
I'm happy, man. I manifested this.
Yeah, you've been on a couple episodes, so, of the latest version of Factual Opinions podcast.
It's like it's been too long, though, man. I miss y'all.
Miss you too,
well, we're glad to have you back, brother. I know with all your travels and everything, it's kind of hard to link up on schedule, but it just worked out today. So I sent you the topics list, brother Kurt, as well as Big John, because there's a lot of things I want to get into, but I have to get into this first. So the hottest topic, I think, going this week is the fallout from I'm calling him Nico Iamaleava because that's how his last name looks and sounds, and that's exactly what happened when Nico, former Vols quarterback, and the University of Tennessee football program chose to go their separate ways over an NIL dispute. It was bound to happen. It's actually not the first time that it's happened, but he's been the most high-profile player of all time. I have my opinions on it, but I just want to. There's Brother Tony in the house. He said UCLA. Yeah, you went from almost $3 million with the Tennessee Vols that you would have made this year. You tried to push it to $4 million. Rumors it's going to be 1.75 with UCLA. You add in Cali taxes, you're probably walking away with about $550,000. So it's going to be rough on Brother Nico right now. Can I get you gentlemen's opinion on what do you feel as far as the Tennessee making a stand and saying, hey, they were not running that type of program, and Nico trying to up his dollar?
It was going to eventually happen. It's just sad that it was this young man, especially as highly as a recruit that he was, especially going to Tennessee. They hadn't had, a quarterback of that stature go there in a while. Being a California kid, coming from Long Beach, going to the SEC, being a quarterback of color, he had everything really going for him. And you probably let outside sources get in your ear. You probably got greedy. You probably felt like, well, they need me. They ain't going to do this. They ain't going to do that. And one thing people fail to realize, whether it's NFL or college, whether you're getting paid or not, nobody's bigger than the team. And once you become that, you expendable, no matter who you are. And had he proved he was worth the money, we wouldn't be having this conversation. If you came out, and he had and I'm not talking down on him. He had a good season for a freshman, but you showed that you were a freshman in plenty of games where you could have took over and improved that you were that Vince Young type quarterback to where you can take over a game, but you didn't do it. So
He didn't
when you
prove that
go
he
to
was
these
T.
places,
Martin
you
yet.
ask it for T. Martin. T. Martin, period. Like, well, I'm not going to say T. Martin. T. Martin won a national championship. He ain't even proved he was Peyton for them because Peyton didn't win one. Hell, Peyton barely won an SEC championship when he was there. But, and that's no shot at Peyton because we all know the Sheriff is great, Hall of Famer. I'm not talking stuff. But yeah, he didn't prove anything. So what's the old saying? It's not about what you are worth, it's about what you can get. Had he came out there, had he had a better showing in the playoffs, had he had a better showing against Old State, had he had a better showing as a freshman, showing what could lead or what could possibly be, maybe you could ask for more money. But since you
And
didn't
I'm gonna get to the playoff
give
game.
You more. We already $1 billion.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to the playoff game because somebody's already mentioned that Tony has a comment on there, but I want to get Brother Kurt in here. What was your opinion on the whole situation, man?
Man, similar to the Brown Bruce Wayne over there. I just feel like if it would have been a better person to do it, that would have guaranteed, to make more money. You have a season that's undeniable to get that type of pay raise or whatever. Uh, it would have been good. Like, and somebody probably would have been able to make a lot off of that deal. Now, the unfortunate part about it is, eventually they're going to patch out this loophole or whatever, and nobody's really going to be able to take advantage of it.
Yep.
Yeah, well, here's where I'm gonna go with it. Okay, Nico, so you swung and you missed, brother, and there's still a way to go about things. And skipping practice and not communicating with the coaches, the athletic director, anybody like that, landed you exactly where you got. Okay. Also, I heard there was no going back. Part of the reason they made the decision was because he lost the locker room. His teammates, had an issue with him holding out and doing that. And you're supposed to be the leader and the quarterback. Yeah, it's going to be hard to step back in that locker room if guys are not behind you. Now, devil's advocate, double-edged sword, however you want to phrase it, because I do have the opinion that we all do on this show that yes, the athletes should be compensated. Never had an issue with that. But the way that it's unfolded, the lack of regulations, the wild, wild west, some kids on campus driving Bentleys and stuff already. This has set the ground for where we're at. See, the NCAA did this on purpose. They purposely stepped back and said, let's let chaos ensue. They'll come crawling back to us, the conferences, the schools and stuff, and we'll be able to regulate again like we used to. No, all it did was actually free it up to do what we know took place under the table before, now out in the open. So that's what happened. Nico, somebody said online I saw where, and I'm going to post this from what Tony said, the report of this guy thinking about sitting out the playoff game over money was wild. And there was a Tennessee fan who had posted on one of my message boards. Let me just say this, and yes, I'm being biased when I say this. You could have had 4 or 5 Nicos out there playing, and you wasn't beating that Ohio State team. Let me just throw that out there. Okay? I don't care if his head was in it or out of it. His helmet got cracked on the first series, setting the tone. They wasn't beating Ohio State that day. That's number one. Number two, when I go back and I look at it, like you said, John, Tennessee has not had this high profile quarterback in a very long time. He didn't have a bad season. They lost, 3 games, I believe it was, the entire year. Mm-hmm. It would have been nice to see them run this back. But I want to quote the Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame, 3-time national championship head coach Urban Meyer, who brought up a really good devil's advocate point. He said, Tennessee, you won the PR battle right now. It looks good. You put your foot down. You said, hey, we're not running this type program. Josh Heupel, you look like, the man in charge up there. Great. And honestly, I'm kind of on their side because it was getting a little out of hand, and you do need to make sure that nobody thinks they're bigger than the team. But like Urban said, that's now. What about that second Saturday in October when you playing them Gators out there on that field and you screwed because you don't have a starting quarterback? Public opinion is going to change real quick at that point.
Yep.
So
You're right about that.
there's two different ways of looking at it, but I do think Tennessee made the right choice ultimately.
But here's the thing, and that falls back on Josh Heupel, but he's done it before with what's his name, Hawker, whatever his name is. So he'll be fine. He's gonna find he may not have a kid with a greater upside than Nico, but he's gonna find a kid to get the job done. And if you plug him in that situation with those receivers, with that defense that Tennessee had, it's going to be fine. Now, will he have the same season, losing only 2 games in the regular season and going to the playoffs? Who knows?
No.
But let's look at the other side of that. Nico damn sure ain't doing that at UCLA. ain't no Mercedes Lewis walking through the door. Ain't no Troy Aikman walking through the door. Ain't none of that walking through the door.
Maurice Jones-Drew.
Ain't none of that.
Deshaun Foster.
None of that. Ain't none of that.
Cade McNown.
Hell, he can't even get the Hoopers that he walking through the door to help your ass. Nobody's walking through the door. So Nico's gonna get there and gonna have a reality shock of, okay, yeah, this is still Division I football, but this ain't Tennessee. This ain't Rocky Top. You at UCLA. UCLA hasn't done anything in football in years.
Well, you know what the irony is? You know what conference UCLA plays in now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a chance that he could run back that whooping facing them Buckeyes again.
Oh yeah.
In the Big Ten.
It's gonna happen. But like I said, man, it's like you said, like we all said, had you proven yourself a little bit more, maybe you could have went back to the well and asked for more. But like you said, his teammates aren't stupid. Yes, it's becoming more about player empowerment in college right now. But a lot of the kids that aren't getting those NIL deals, a lot of the kids that aren't getting that big time money that just own the team, that just, as what Dabo call them, is we on the bus. The rest of the kids that's on the bus, they ain't worried about you getting an extra $2 million, my nigga. They don't care. They trying to stay in school and play football. So
what Charles Barkley say, that the Jags, just another guy.
Just another guy. They ain't worried about you. So with that being said, like when you lost that guy, because you may be throwing to a receiver that ain't got his NIL deal yet. You may be throwing to a tight end that ain't got his NIL deal yet. You may have a left tackle or a right guard that ain't got an NIL deal that's blocking for you. But you want to leave our school and leave us hanging for another $2 million? Boy, you outside your mind.
How do y'all feel about the contracts just in general, as far as, players getting 2-year contracts and then having the ability to leave? And, are they
Al in the house?
Are they able, like, how do y'all feel about that?
I don't mind it. The reason why I don't mind, okay, it's a double-edged sword like that, what Al said. I only mind it because when these coaches are there, and say you walk in, I'm just gonna use him, even though we know he's retired, he's not doing nothing. But if you go to Alabama knowing you want to play for Nick Saban, and Nick Saban ultimately leaves, like, you know what, I've done what I've done at Alabama, I'm moving on. That's my only problem with it, because the coaches aren't locked in. But when you lock a kid in, you locking him in. Well, I came to play for Nick Saban. I didn't come to play for the guy from Washington. I didn't come to play for him. So I don't mind it because it kind of puts a cap on everything and makes sure it's not the wild, wild west, but also it still hinders the kid when you don't hold up your end of the bargain as the school and as the facility. You don't hold up your end of the bargain.
I still feel like that's part of what I mentioned earlier as far as the specific regulations or provisions that need to be put in there. Because when they, a few years back, loosen the transfer portal, I call it around the Justin Fields era, where they made it where guys can just go now. I think it needs to go back to special provisions. Like I said, I got a family member that's sick at home. I came to play for a specific coach that got fired or left on his own accord to go somewhere else. Those are the provisions that need to still be in there. But this whole, I didn't get enough playing time, coach said something I didn't like, I'm just in my feelings transfers. No, I'm not for that.
And that's what I was getting at, because we all know how the high school circuit is, and it's still different from college, and as far as expectations. And once you start pacifying everybody, it messes up the whole game.
But what's crazy about it is, I don't want to misquote the name of the player, but it was a player that made it to the NFL, and he's actually the NIL person or executive for the school that he graduated from, that he played in college, and he's kind of going through the same thing. He was like, you get a kid in there that gets in there and he's demanding $500,000, and you got to be the one to tell him, sir, you're not that good. We're not giving you that. And this is coming from a guy that made it to the NFL. No, I don't. He's not a star. He's not a person that made big money, but he still made it. Had an 8-year career, 10-year career where he got a pension. Then came back to the school, and now he's helping his school out. But he has to be the person to tell these kids, "Son, you're not that good." And also, what like Kurt said, you got these kids now that gets upset even on the high school level because they're not getting playing time. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. Or they want to play AAU and they're not that good. Why are you doing this? Now, it falls on the adults to be reasonable with the children and tell them, son, either work a little bit harder, get better, or kill all this noise you're talking because you haven't reached that level yet, if you ever will. So,
But in the era where just in general society pacifies individuals and it's gaslighting, it's talking down, it's shaming an individual to tell them the truth, that's what complicates it. And then, not that parents haven't always looked at their kids differently, and shown favoritism, as they rightfully should, because it's their kid or whatever. I'm just trying to figure out how you scale back that entitlement to affect high school, college, athletes, because it only gets worse when you add money into it.
Parents have to do their job. Parents got to do their job. I'm gonna shout out my coworker, Brother Wayne. Brother Wayne has 4 boys. 3 of them have already went to college and played, but his youngest son is probably going to be the best. He was telling me a story about when his son played for Little League. He got a participation trophy, but his son only played in 2 games because he couldn't make weight. So he told his son, "Oh, do you think you deserve that trophy?" And he told him no. He was like, so he took the trophy and threw it away. I said, now this young man is the left tackle for Elder with several Division I prospects looking at him to go to several schools. That's 300 pounds solid muscle. That's 6'4". So he's earning it now, but it took the parent to tell him, you didn't earn this. You have to be better. If you want this treatment, you have to be better. That's a parent thing. That's a parent job.
Yeah, but we all know, especially in today's time, you can't tell anybody anything about their, child.
The hardest part of coaching.
Yeah, but that's why I said it's the parent's job, not the coach's job.
We were fortunate enough when I was coaching at Purcell to have parents that, did listen. And I mean, there was some that, thought that their kid was better than they were. But like I said, we were fortunate enough to have kids that were really about that life. I mean, again, on that team, we got about 4 or 5 that are playing D1 college football now, or getting ready to this coming year. And another 4 or 5 that are playing at D2 colleges or D3, college. So we had real athletes. So I think I was fortunate because I know about what you guys are speaking, especially having coached Little League and stuff too. But, I was lucky enough and fortunate enough at Purcell where our guys really were good. So we didn't have that problem.
Right. Right. But even with that being said, you can still be good, but it's always levels. It's always somebody working harder than you. It's always somebody better than you. So you got to be realistic about your kid, what he can do, and who he is. Like even when we talk about kids that play different sports, we had that conversation all the time. Where you have a kid that's a 6'4", 4 or 5 in high school, my nigga, play football, play baseball, do something else. But you're not finna be Charles Barkley. You're not finna be Jason Maxiell. You're not finna be an undersized power forward in the NBA. It's a wrap. When you are the size of a regular point guard and you're 250, 300 pounds, you're not a guard. You're a guard on the football field. You're not a guard in the NBA. It's a difference.
Well, we bring up this example all the time with, AD that was under us. He was freshman when I was senior. You know, you were a junior, Big John. Same thing. AD, Kurt from
Yeah,
Schroeder, aka Sinbad.
yeah, you know.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, we had that argument with him all the time, and I know personally because of the relationship that I have with him. He thought he was a 6'4", Charles Barkley. You know, and I mean, he had game as a hooper, so I'm not being funny when I say that, but I'm just saying, like, if you're trying to play in college, like, you're not going to do that, man. Now I tell you what you can do. I said, you can put your big self down there on that line of scrimmage, put their hand down, run off that edge. And he finished with double digit sacks his senior year. Only played 1 year at Schroeder. Finally listened to me. Had double digit sacks and went on to play 4 years at Union College down there in Kentucky. We talk about this all the time with baseball players that, guys who could have had excellent baseball careers, but they thought they were going to be the next Allen Iverson. Um, you can't force something where your heart is not really at. I know that for sure because people told me all the time how great a baseball player I was, and I'm like, just
Same
what?
here.
But Al,
So-
the only difference between that is you had the talent in football. You weren't trying to go be Spud Webb or trying to go be Allen Iverson you weren't trying to do that. You actually had talent and being recruited for football. The difference between what we're saying is there are kids that aren't even being looked at for the sport that their heart may be in. And I'm not telling you not to follow your dreams and not to do that. Because sometimes you can be a Darren Sproles where people laughed at you and you still have a hell of a career, a Super Bowl champion, all-time running back, being 5'6". Nobody's telling you.
Or Kurt's favorite quarterback.
Right. So nobody's saying you can't. Nobody's saying that you can't defy the odds. But when the deck is stacked against you and you show other promise in a different sport, you may want to listen to the people that have been there before. Because even people who excel, whether it's like a Julius Peppers that was averaging 10 points at North Carolina being a basketball player, we all knew where his bread was buttered. We already knew he's a Hall of Fame football player.
Cal said we didn't get them trophies. We had to work.
Exactly.
Yeah, y'all did with Little Red Machines, huh?
So even with that being said,
we used to smack them.
Bro,
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I only lost 2 games in 12 years. I don't know who you used to smack. But anyway. But yeah, with that being said, like we knew Julius Peppers, you a Hall of Fame football player. Yeah, you averaging 10 or 11 points at North Carolina. You can go to the NBA and be the 8th man off the bench or whatever, but you're a Hall of Fame football player.
Well, you know what's funny, and for those who follow this platform, y'all may know this. I don't talk about it as much as I used to, but my second favorite basketball player all time is Allen Iverson. Always will be. And even he jokes about how much better of a football player he was that he was a basketball player, but still ended up as a Hall of Famer in basketball. Mm-hmm. So it can happen. A lot of times it's just about luck or choosing the right sport. We talk about Ken Griffey all the time on here. We know he wanted to be a football player, but obviously he chose the right, sport. So, it does happen. But like you said, Big John, we're talking about people that actually have the skill to do so, not people that are dragging the bench and for whatever reason their parents allow them to think that they have a future in something that they don't. And I'm not telling you to crush a kid's dream or nothing like that. It's just there's a difference. As Tyler Boyd would say, there's levels to this.
Right. And even if you want to use another example, even Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward won the Heisman in college. But he knew he had a better opportunity being a hooper, especially in the era he played football in, than trying to go to the NFL and be a quarterback with his size and his ability that they weren't looking for at the time.
Playing for my New York Knicks.
So like I said, he chose the right avenue. He probably loved football more. Hell, you won the Heisman. How you tell a Heisman winner that he can't make it in the NFL?
Right. So before we pivot away from this topic, I just want to ask, and you guys can keep it brief if you want. So what is the answer to the current, NIL landscape contracts? if there even is one at this point.
There has to be some regulations to it. And it has to be some regulations that benefit both sides. It can't just benefit the coaches in the system. It can't just benefit the players. Some regulations have to be put into place
Yeah.
because it's getting out of hand. And like you said, this is not the first time it's happened. Nico is just the perfect example because he's the most sought after athlete that this has happened to so far. So it has to be some regulations put
I
in.
mean, there was a kid for UNLV that actually quit during the middle of the
Yeah, the
season
quarterback. And then they
last
end up
year.
having a
Yeah.
better record without him. So yeah.
Well, let me add my 2 cents in there. The only thing I do want some regulation. I do want a cap on what individuals are able to make, and more importantly, I want if you sign up for an NIL deal, then you have to fulfill your commitment to your university. No more opting out. I don't want to play in bowl games and all this. Like you need to finish the season. If your team has a game scheduled, you need to play that game, barring injury.
I feel pretty much the same way as you do. Like just put in some regulations, to where you know whether it's academic, like you said, family member near you that needs help. Those type of things are the reason that a person should be able to transfer because just all this transferring business is it's gonna screw up the game.
Yeah, like John's boy Cam Ward down there at Miami that played the first half of that bowl game just so he could break the ACC uh single, I forgot whether it was passing yards, touchdown. Really don't matter to me at this point because I think the record is tarnished. And then you set out the second half and watched your team lose its lead and lose the bowl game. I would rather you just not play as opposed to do some bull
Yeah.
junk like
Much,
that, as
much as
Prime would say.
as much as I love my Hurricanes, my nigga, that was corny. That was corny.
So moving on from college football and an extension of that, we have the NFL draft coming up next week. Gentlemen, on Thursday, the first round shall commence. Our beloved Cincinnati Bengals will be on the clock picking at pick number 17 in the first round. As we know, setting the backdrop, the Bengals did the impossible and what national pundits said that they would not be able to do this offseason, and they signed uh, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to long term extensions, got the deal done in impressive fashion. But let's be realistic, that is going to limit some of the ability that they have to plug holes in other spots of the roster. So, what does that mean? That means that they cannot miss in the NFL draft this year, particularly with their first 4 round picks. Like, these need to be guys that are coming in and at least contributing, if not starting. So, with that said, let's talk about it. Pick number 17 in the first round. Is there anybody in particular, if available on the clock, that you all would want to see the Bengals snag at pick number 17? Or anybody you don't want to see them pick or a position?
Well, secondary is terrible. So Will Johnson is available for Michigan. I know you don't want them to get a Michigan guy, even though you said Will Johnson is the only Michigan guy you will approve of. Him or getting that young man from Tennessee, the pass rusher, because you're gonna
James
have to,
Spear. Yeah.
you're gonna have to replace your pass rush right now because you hurting. You just had Hubbard retire. He was probably on his last legs. Nobody you have after him has really showed anything. You don't know what's going on with your all time, what's not with your all time sack leader, but with the all time sack leader of this past season. You don't know what's going on with Hendrickson. So you're gonna have to get younger on the defensive line, and there's holes everywhere on the defense. Linebacker core needs help too. So with that being said, anything defensively would be a help. You have to bolster the offensive line because that's been a work in progress for the past 5 or 4 years. Yeah, and hopefully in the later rounds you get a running back.
Hey, you said it. I'm all for first 4 rounds, however many picks we got. Let's get defense.
Right.
We made some big signs on the offensive side of the ball. Hopefully, we do have an offensive line that can play in sync and protect Joe Burrow for sure. But we need defense. I feel like the linebacking crew let me down a lot last year. Logan Wilson wasn't his usual self.
He was hurt. He ain't even really played majority of the season, but yeah.
Um, Pratt, like, we just need to get younger. We need a dog in the secondary, as you said. I'm always down for getting a good corner, but I feel like in the past, I feel like we don't really hit that much when it comes to picking cornerbacks, at least in my opinion. Because and they're always hurt for some reason. But we just need a solid defense. So I'm spending a lot of my draft picks on D.
Well, I would tend to agree, brother Kurt. We had a nice little run when Marvin was here, where we were hitting on first round corners that we were drafting, at least being productive. The Leon Halls and Jonathan Josephs. Could even make an argument. Depending on how people feel about him. Dre Kirkpatrick did play a lot of years here and had some productive seasons. He wasn't a bust, is what I'm trying to get to. So you could always use another corner. Now, yes, see Big John, he think he's slick, man. He always likes to trap me in these Michigan conversations about these players from that team up north and somehow trick me into defending them, when he knows I don't want to. But if Will Johnson is there at that pick, you have to consider him. He would have been a top 5 pick had he not had an injury riddled, season. But when he was out there, he was clearly, in my opinion, the best, corner in the country. But honestly, I'm going to throw another name out there. If this guy is available, the Cincinnati Bengals representative there in historic Lambeau Field should run up to the podium. If Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Ole Miss, is available, they need to run up there. If you guys don't know who I'm referring to, do your research, look at the highlight tapes. They add Walter Nolan to this defensive line where last year they did draft Chris Jenkins from that team up north and McKinley Jackson from Texas A&M. They're young. They had a few injuries, but came on towards the end of the year. You add Walter Nolan to this group, all of a sudden you got I'm trying to build a Philadelphia Eagles S type. I'm not saying it's going to be the same, but this type blueprint that they have. Then I would say in the second round, I'm with Kurt. I would stick with defense, but I do know that the Bengals, just throwing this nugget out there, they have had a few running backs in for visits that they might be looking at in the second round. 2 for sure I know came from Quashawn Judkins and Travion Henderson. Definitely were here for visits in the past week and a half. So they are looking at running back because they know Chase Brown needs help. Now, is it an immediate need? Probably not, but I'm only saying that because Zach Taylor doesn't like to run the ball anyway. But it has to be a consideration. But I would say, honestly, things fall the way that they're supposed to. I know they had this guy in here for a look too, and I know everybody would say, well, of course you're going to say that. Hey, man, if Captain Jack is there, if Jack Sawyer is there at, I believe, pick number 49 for the Bengals, you just lost Sam Hubbard, like you said. That would be a perfect replacement. And you do have to get another pass rusher because who knows what's going to happen with this, Trey Hendrickson, ordeal. But there's other guys like, John mentioned, I made that post to James Pierce. There's Mike Green from Marshall that, people are saying that the Bengals might consider with that 17 pick. Ultimately, if it's a pass rusher or a defensive lineman with that first pick, maybe even the second one, I'm not complaining regardless.
Can I ask you a real quick question?
What's up?
If we got the chance to draft one of those 2 RBs from which one you taking?
Well, I don't know if Cal is still in the room. I'm choosing Travion Henderson, honestly, over Quashawn Judkins. Now, Quashawn Judkins might be built more so for the AFC North and the type of downhill runner that you want. But I mean, For me, you can't replace that explosiveness of Travion Henderson.
Okay, which you are correct in that.
Cal said 32 also.
But would you not take Junkins to pair with Chase Brown because you already have that open field breaking big hitter guy in Brown?
I get what you're saying, but I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with either. I'm
I'm
just
just
saying,
saying. I mean, as far as a
imagine how
football,
explosive and fast your backfield instantly becomes if
I
you have
mean,
You
Travion
can play
and
on
Chase
both at the
Brown.
same
I
time.
mean, the good thing about that is with having Joe Burrow and having two athletic running backs like that, that will help you in the passing game tremendously. But you still need that thumper guy. Like you still need that. Like you are in the AFC. What do you say? This is Detroit. In case you forgot, this is still the AFC North. So
Yeah, they tried
you
that with Zach Moss and it didn't work out too
But
well.
yeah,
actually,
yeah.
Chase Brown wasn't bad at those
I mean,
short yardage
it's
situations.
not about being bad, but it's about what you do well. That's still not Chase Brown's game.
Cal just brought up another thing that's really underrated about 32.
Yeah, perfectly fine, and he is explosive.
Pass protector in the
But
backfield
then when
too.
you have
Thumper.
when you when
Yeah.
you when you let go of a guy like Mixon that can do everything, you have to kind of replace that by committee. You don't have that 3 yards in the cloud of dust guy. You need that. Like you need it.
I don't think they could go wrong with either one, but I'm just saying if you put 32 back there with the explosiveness of Chase Brown, all of a sudden you arguably have the fastest backfield
Right.
running back tandem in the league.
But
One,
one thing you
two.
did say that made sense, they're going to have that, and I've said it in previous episodes too. They're going to have that Philadelphia Eagles rebuild. They're going to have that St. Louis Rams rebuild when they got rid of Todd Gurley and Golf and all them. They're going to have that because if not, you're going to waste the window that you have because you have talented players to get it done. But if you don't patch up the holes, you're going to waste it.
There's holes, and that's why I'm saying I would put heavy emphasis outside of maybe that second round pick if you just decide you can't pass up on one of those two available running backs. If one or both doesn't get drafted at the end of the first round, okay, I could see that, but I would immediately go back to defense because you have to plug those holes.
Oh,
Now,
defense is the need, is the
You got to
draft.
plug the
now,
holes, but you got to take the best player available
Now,
too.
if you have a player that falls to you, by the grace of the Lord that you just got to take, okay, cool. But the need is defense in this draft. The need is defense. Period.
well, something Kurt just mentioned though. When the Bengals do this, I don't know that it always works out, but I do kind of believe in this because I've seen other teams do it and get a Ray Lewis or somebody that they wouldn't have necessarily needed, but they just chose the best player available on the board. You can do that also when you in playoff contention and are an actual
Hmm.
contender a little bit easier than right now. Because right now the Bengals legitimately have holes that they have to fill. And that's why the majority of the draft needs to be geared towards defense. And I think they will, but I know they brought them running backs in there for a visit for a reason. They are intrigued. They're looking at them.
Well, probably because they know, regardless if Zach doesn't like running the football, that's a football one-on-one stalwart pillar. You have to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to keep the defense honest. Regardless if you like to do it or not, you have to do it. That's why what the years you had Joe Mixon, he was a 1,000-yard rusher other than 1 year. You have to be able to run the ball.
He was a 1,000-yard rusher again this year too.
Yep. Yeah.
I just want to point that out.
Yeah.
Jodine had a very good year and proved me and other people right that said
Well,
that he wasn't even close to being the problem, and why
this
some
year,
people zeroed in on him was beyond me.
this year, the running backs definitely told everybody to put some respect on their name, whether it was King
They
Henry,
getting paid.
whether it was Saquon Barkley bringing home almost bringing home the rushing record and bringing home the Super Bowl. They're gonna have to start respecting the running back position again because you can't. It's too important.
Well, Saquon definitely put his foot in the pot, this year and
He's
reminded
hurdling over
everybody.
people backwards.
Exactly. I was so proud of him. Like I said, all three of the top three most overlooked or undervalued running backs by their previous employers had great years. Joe Mixon, King Henry, and Saquon Barkley made all of their previous employers look really stupid for letting them go like that. So we know what the Bengals need and should do as far as, their emphasis. I know Cal said the same thing when I posted Pence's 40-yard dash on the Factual Opinions IG page. It's just seeing somebody, 6'5", almost, 250, run a 4 or 5 flat. Like,
It's different. Like I know
yeah,
me and Al was joking about what's his name? Is it Fisher or Fisk, the D tackle from Florida State last year, the white dude
yeah, yeah.
that ran the 4.7 that was hauling ass that's 300 pounds, and he was like, you heard it, oh yeah. You heard
Yeah,
it.
when they took that last step, he said, "Oh yeah, I
And
just
the
made
crazy part
myself some
about it
money."
is the Rams defense got better because they took the defensive end from Florida State and they took him because they had to replace Aaron Donald somehow. You don't replace Aaron Donald. You just make shift stuff to make it happen. And those two young guys have been balling, so it works.
Yeah, I just saw a recent workout video of his. Pause. Let me throw that in there. He looks like he can still be playing.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like he didn't fall off.
The crazy part about it is when you say Aaron Donald has played for 10 years, it don't seem like he's been playing that long. But he's done so much and he has been a beast for so long, it don't feel like he's been playing for 10 years. Like that's the crazy part. And he still can play. It was rumors that he was gonna come back, but I don't know. I think he's done.
And the last 3 or 4 years were just so crazy. That's
Yeah.
just what you're gonna remember the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Bengals have a litany of options that they could take to improve their roster. I think most people have zeroed in and said, "Man, I would like to see them take a defensive lineman or an edge rusher in that first, pick." Let's talk about some other people real quick as we wrap up the NFL draft. I did this last episode. I'm going to do it again. I don't know if all the Shador Sanders hate is just pre-draft fluff for teams that might want him to fall so they have a chance to get him. I don't know if it's legit. They have an issue with me and Kurt's favorite NFL player of all time, so they're taking it out on his son. It could be a combination of both. One ridiculous comment that I heard from a GM or a front office exec that had an interview with Shador Sanders was, well, he just doesn't seem to care what we think.
Why would he?
Is that a bad thing?
I mean, but why would
you
he?
want your franchise quarterback? And I mean, to a degree, I'm saying this, but you want your franchise quarterback to read every press clipping and what everybody's saying about your team or him and constantly being influenced by what other people were saying or think? Or do you want, let me just throw it out there and ask, discount double check Aaron Rodgers in his prime, because the 49ers passed up on him too because they thought he was arrogant was, the term. And we see how that worked out. A lot of people passed up on Big Ben for, well, some similar reasons. There were other reasons too, but
You can put them on Front Street. We don't mess with him. Shoot, you say
yeah, but
the
people in Pittsburgh don't even mess with him.
Hey, bro, he still
they messed with them 2 Super Bowls and 2 Lombardi trophies.
They do, but like when you talk to them, the real diehards that's from there, they don't rock with them.
Well, look, I know people from Miami, Ohio. That's where my brother went and graduated. I know what Big Ben was doing up there. I got firsthand evidence of what was happening even when he was in Oxford, Ohio. But we'll leave it at that. So what I'm saying is, I don't know why people are knocking. Then you had the players last week talking about his pro day, where sometimes he pats the ball before he, throws it and making it an issue out of that. And I'm just like, man, y'all just, do not like Shador, man. That's what it comes down to.
But you know what's crazy is they need him to fail. They need him to fail to prove everything that they're saying right. Because you know how obnoxious Dion, Dion doesn't do things to be petty or obnoxious. That's just who he is. But when Dion got drafted, you remember what he said? If they draft me, they're gonna have to bring the Brinks truck up. If his son, as a quarterback, is successful, do you know what they're gonna have to pay that man?
I remember Dion trying to dissuade the Detroit Lions from drafting him and saying, if Detroit drafted me, I was going to ask for so much money they're going to put me on layaway.
Right. With that being said, bro, like there's nothing that Shedeur as a quarterback doesn't do well. He may not do a lot of things great, but he is very well balanced. And you don't put up the numbers that he puts up for the years that he's puts up and not be a big quarterback.
But when I watch him, I'm like, okay, even if you want to use the term great, I'm like, well, what doesn't he do that's not good or above average? I told you when Tim Hasselbeck made that Andy Dalton comparison, and I love the Red Rifle, but I'm like, look, the Red Rifle at no point in time at TCU was even close to the caliber of Shedeur at Jackson State, let alone Colorado.
Not at all. And like I said, not at all. And Andy was a good college quarterback, and I'm not even hating on him. No, not at all. But and like I said, I'm only saying that because that's what the popular census is trying to say about him. I feel like he's the most NFL ready quarterback. He's more NFL ready than
Cal said he won the ride. I'm assuming you meant Rose Bowl.
Rose Bowl, yeah.
Yeah, when he beat Wisconsin.
Yeah.
No, I have been one of the staunchest Andy Dalton defenders in the universe. Y'all know that. But there are levels to this, and we know this now, especially with us having Joseph Lee Burrow as our quarterback. You know what the difference is. But I'm just saying, at no point in time, if I put TCU Andy Dalton up to Shedeur at Colorado, I still say Shedeur has the higher, ceiling. I don't get that comparison. I think Tim Hasselbeck was, I won't say being petty, but I just don't like the comparison.
He's tripping. But the crazy thing about it is, let Shedeur fall later in the first round, let him go to an established team. It's going to get real ugly.
Well, I like the other landing spot potentially that I've been seeing as of late, where possibly the Saints could be interested in taking Shedeur. I like that much better than him going to Cleveland, because if he goes to Cleveland, the haters are probably going to get exactly what they want and how his career turns out.
Even though I know it's a greater possibility, I don't even want his homie going to Cleveland. I don't even want Hunter going to Cleveland. But it's going to happen.
Yeah, they're going to take him at 2 if he's there.
So with that being said, like, let him go.
Work.
Yeah, definitely. Let him go to the Saints, where they have a defense, where they got Olave, where they got I don't want to call it Rashid. That's the guy we went to high school with. Whatever dude's name is, Rashad, whatever his name is, the burner.
Yeah, I remember that Chris Olave, man. I just can't remember where he went to school at. But
look, that ain't got nothing to do with me.
I really wish he would have ended up in New York. That's where I really think he would have shined at.
But here's the thing: New York, that will give him the cachet of being drafted high. But New York ain't got nothing for him right now. Yeah, they got the young guy from LA.
Neighbors.
They got Neighbors, but that's it. Like, it's gonna be him and Neighbors against the world. Which
I just don't like that situation, because that's not the New York Giants team that we grew up watching.
Right.
As far as being able to put together a team around him.
Yeah.
Because the New York media is still the New York media, and it could get real nasty there. And now that they signed Famous Jameis and Russ.
Right.
So he wouldn't come in and start, but then again, that may not be a bad thing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like him coming in, sitting and learning for a couple games, I have no problem with that. But if he goes to the Saints, they're moving in the right direction. If he goes to the Raiders, where his childhood mentor, because he's been trained by Tom Brady,
Kurt's favorite quarterback.
He's going there. He's going to be around his mentor as a child. He's going to be around that will help him. Now, the Raiders got to do some rebuilding too. they had some bright spots. They got to do some rebuilding too. But anywhere but Cleveland. Anywhere but Cleveland.
So is Cam Ward the number one pick?
Yeah, because nobody wants to pass Cam Ward and regret it. Not saying he's the best. I feel like Shedeur. I've said this on air. Shedeur and Quentin Ewers are the two NFL-ready quarterbacks to me. Cam Ward probably has the better upside than a lot of quarterbacks, but nobody wants to pass on Cam Ward and be wrong.
I still feel like Cam Ward has to be in the right system to come in and cook him based on his play style. Now, he could prove us wrong, and he could turn into a Russell Wilson or something like that. But, the one thing he does have in his bag is he did succeed at two different D1 programs in Washington State and, the U. So I don't think it's a fluke. I don't think he's a one-hit wonder. I'm just not as high on him as some other people
Here's
are.
The thing. You mentioned Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson also went to the Seahawks with an established coach, with an established running back, with an established defense. It fit him. He's going to Tennessee where he's got to get it out the mud, period. There's nothing there for him.
Say get it out the mud.
There's nothing there for him. He's literally going to have to be Superman. Now, they're still NFL guys, so he has some guys that's going to make plays for him. But he still is going to be the main attraction. He's going to be the main guy. He's going to have little to no help. He's going to have to be that guy.
Yeah, true. I'm just looking forward to this Thursday when everything happens. And Friday, the second and third round in particular. You know me, I watch the whole draft though. So I watch rounds 4 through 7 too. I still get off on that stuff. But before we wrap up with basketball talk, I want to talk about
we wrap up with football talk.
Yes, football. No, I was saying I'm going to wrap up with basketball talk. Finish with that. I want to talk to another sport that's always been dear to me and Kurt in boxing. Boots became the unified welterweight champion of the world on Saturday in impressive fashion. But I want to talk to another boxing guy, especially since we don't have Brother Nate on here this week. What's your opinions of Boot, Kurt? Do you think he is the number one guy at 147?
I sure would like to see. But I can't call him that right now at all because he really ain't. He doesn't have the fights.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have any significant victories that will. He's won a belt, but
yeah,
he ain't really fought nobody. I think he got the talent to be. He ain't fought nobody.
If you could choose a matchup for him, no, I agree.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear?
You don't mess with boxing like that?
Whenever I talk about boxing, I always defer to him and Nate. Like I said, I don't follow it as much as I did as a kid, but
I think Buddha's in one of those scenarios.
Yeah, that's how I feel when y'all talk college basketball or football.
I feel like Boot is in one of those scenarios where
I'm a boxing guy. Have you seen Boots fight at all?
Can you hear us, Gert?
No, I haven't. I don't think he can hear us. Can you hear us?
No, I don't think you hear either.
No, we hear you. Do you hear us?
I don't hear Alex. I just hear you.
Oh, okay.
Is he talking?
Yeah, go ahead, Al.
Hold on.
He is.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Buddha's in one of those positions where he's unfortunate, like you said, being kind of penalized because he hasn't fought anybody. Now, how much of that is him? I mean, 147 kind of cleared out right before he, got the belt and put himself on, right? There's no Bud Crawford. There's no Spence. One time Thurman moved up. Boots don't really have anybody to fight, honestly, at 147.
That's why I said he got the talent. I think he would be a top fighter, but like you said, he's a victim of that, just not really having too many people around him.
Well, he's the unified champ now, so he's one belt short of being undisputed. I don't know who in that division would be able to match him at this point.
I can't even think of anybody else in that division right now.
Well, we know after Ryan Garcia wins next month and then fights my man Devin again, and I'm so looking forward to that fight because when he dusted him off this time, and there's no he was on PEDs or whatever. I just want to hear what the excuse of Bill Haney is going to be this this time.
I wish I
But
could disagree with you right now, but I feel the same way. I
like
do
Ryan
think
Garcia said, that hook didn't have nothing to do with PED.
I do think Haney has. I used to think he was just straight chump, to be honest, like super overrated. Wasn't impressive at all. But I will say his last couple fights, he has kind of changed my perspective on him. You know,
He's a good fighter. I don't think he's better than Ryan Garcia. And the fact that they fought as amateurs and Ryan always beat him as an amateur too. Like I'm just like, you can't beat him, man.
Yeah,
It's okay.
and like we always talk about whether it's football, basketball, or whatever. Sometimes somebody always has your number. It doesn't mean that you're a bad fighter. It doesn't mean that you can't get it done, but you just can't beat this one person.
Because we know for the longest that bronze bomber from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
he got a fight coming up, don't he?
He does, and I don't even know what channel it's on. It's some backwoods,
You're not gonna watch it?
probably not. And that's no disrespect to the champ, because I've been a fan of his whole career. But sometimes what Kenny Rogers say, you got to know when to hold him and know when to fold him. But I was making the point that I know for the longest it bothered him that the only person that for a very long stretch was able to beat him was that big Englishman Tyson Fury. I know that bothered the hell out of him, but sometimes, like you said, Big John, somebody just has your number.
Especially, but nah, because I still feel about a certain way about that count that happened. I feel like he won that fight. That 10 count was mighty slow. He probably feels the same way.
Well, we know how that is, Kurt. Look, I
Controversy, man.
I can still show you to this day that Buster Douglas was down for 12 seconds against Mike Tyson. But like they always say, it's not the count that we talking about. It's did he beat the count of the referee? Now, as unfair as that is, that's what happened.
Or the Vegas count, the count of the Vegas, the dollars.
Yeah, but what you said may be correct, man. But he knocked he knocked that big English man down a couple times and he got back up. He just didn't finish the job.
For the
That's one
longest,
strong white boy.
he's still the only person to get hit by Deontay go down and live to tell the story.
Right. What that
Cal said it's on the WB.
what that comedian say if heroin, cocaine, and overeating didn't beat Tyson Fury, that right hand wasn't gonna do nothing.
Sometimes it's the perfect storm. We talk about that all the time, man. Leading up to that Tyson Douglas fight, we know that Tyson was in the hotel with them Japanese women and him and Bobby Brown, doing what they do. But at the end of the day, it was the perfect storm, man. Buster Douglas' mama died before that fight.
Right.
So we always talk about that. That's one or two situations. Either, hey, we canceling the fight, I can't concentrate right now, or somebody getting their ass whooped.
Right. He definitely chose the second one.
So I gotta ask you, so we haven't spoke in a while. If this Terrence Crawford and Canelo just so happens to happen, where you going with that one, man?
Well, as of right now, it is booked because Turkey Al-Sheikh don't play. When he throw that money out there, he throw that money that you can't resist. And he makes these fights happen with that oil money. But as far as who I'm picking, I've been on record of saying, I've never picked against Bud his entire career. He ain't beaten Canelo.
Because of skill or because of the weight? But that's what scares
I
me is him moving up.
I don't want to say anybody's more skilled or more intelligent fighter, but there are weight divisions for a reason. And he didn't look that great going up one weight class to 154 to junior middleweight.
Mm-mm.
Now, I tried to give him a mulligan because that was his first fight at that division, but now you're talking about, oh, I'm going to jump two more divisions to super middleweight at 168 and fight Canelo, a dude that easily probably walks around at 190, 200 pounds, when he's not training, and then the skill of Canelo, that's that's just a little bit too much, man.
That's what made me think he's got retirement on his mind, and this could be the last Karai, because it just doesn't seem smart. And and if I'm going to bet some money, which I probably won't, because I don't like betting when half of my heart is into it, because I want to see Crawford do his thing. But
I hate betting on boxing. I always tell the story about how I lost on that Roy Jones Antonio Tarver rematch when we were in 11th
shit,
grade.
everybody lost on that fight.
Because all it takes is one punch, man, and everything, all the logic that you brought to the table is out the window. Um, I hope Bud can pull off a Roy Jones, John Ruiz, type performance. If anybody can do it, is Bud, but I don't see it as smart, man. And unless
Yeah,
something really goes wrong with Canelo, I don't see how he wins that fight.
Roy Ruiz, Crawford, Canelo. That's that, and that's not even, that's like apples to oranges right there. Like Canelo is a monster.
I mean,
I
maybe,
think
but
one
it's
person
the
that
same as far as moving two weight classes up.
yeah. I think that one person that he ducking though, Benavidez. Canelo don't want no smoke. I'm gonna just leave
No,
that right there.
a lot of people don't want smoke with Benavidez. Um, yeah, but boxing is got a lot of different competitors in different divisions right now. So there's a lot of fights that we still want to see, and we may indeed see them. But right now, I'm wanting Ryan to take care of his visits. I want Devin Haney to take care of his visits because that rematch. Big John asked me, he said, "You want to see that?" I said, "Yes, I do," because I don't want no excuses this time when
And the
King
only reason
Ryan puts
I
them
asked that,
paws on me.
the only reason I asked that because the way he beat him down, it wasn't like ain't that much ginseng and PEDs gonna help you do that in the world. Just like people when I joke, everybody got their feelings in this different sport about the whole Barry Bonds thing. I don't care how many drugs Barry Bonds took, you still ain't gonna make you hit that curveball.
I don't think
So
baseball really cared, to be honest.
I don't think
Well,
they
they
did
didn't at the time because it was legal.
right.
And that's my whole thing about, not to get sidetracked with that, but it's a great segue. This whole vendetta that they have against Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds and the rest of them, I'm like, how are you going to hold them accountable for something that was legal at the time? It wasn't even, oh, they looking the other way. Like, it was legal.
Right. Right.
And you trying to hold them accountable now after the fact?
Right.
If somebody gets popped in today's time where it's not, okay, I got you. But like Big John said, and I'm quick to bring up whether it's Manny Ramirez, A-Rod, Barry Bonds, listen, you don't know baseball if you telling me that that's why they turned over on them balls like they did. Pause. Because the hand-eye coordination is something that you can't teach.
I don't care how many plates on a bench that you can lift. Ain't got nothing to do with hitting the ball.
Now, does it help you stay healthy during an 163 game season to break those records? Yes, because you saw with somebody like Ken Griffey Jr., who was never accused of any of that, what his body naturally does as you get older, it broke down. As opposed to these other players that we just mentioned, still going strong at 80. Like, wait a minute, man. But, I don't want to get sidetracked with the baseball talk, but want to end with basketball. We had the University of Cincinnati some really bad luck this week via the transfer portal when the two stalwarts of Wes Miller's first full recruiting class, back in 2022. 4-star forward Dan Skillings Jr. from Roman Catholic High School in Philadelphia, PA, and 3-star forward Josh Reed from Atlanta, Georgia's Pace Academy. They were the guys that he was building his program around, and of course, they undefeated, this year, and we still have not made the tournament since Mick Cronin left in 2018. Just want to throw that out there. Who has been to a Final Four since? But anyway, Skillings transferred to Baylor. Reed transferred to Penn State. A lot of people are saying, whoop-de-doo, we got Sean Abebe coming in, the McDonald's All-American from New Jersey. I'm like, well, he's just one player. I'm a little concerned. I'm trying not to go in at this point, but I'm concerned because, again, we have not been to the tournament since 2018. And say what you want about Mick Cronin, he at least restored us back to respectability where we were going to the tournament every year again. Got Tez in the house. He said, "What up, Kurt?
What's going on?
What's good, fool?"
I'll keep it short and sweet, man. Is UC basketball ever gonna get back to how it was when we grew up?
Ain't looking good. It can, but it has to be the right hire. And I know, a couple years ago, you were talking about the whole Nick Van Exel everything, and they wanted him to have a degree, and they wanted him to do this. It has to be the right guy to implement it. And I know a lot of the older, UC guys was backing the coach that they have now because they like what he was doing. But
the Jordan brand uniforms ain't gonna do it by themselves. That's number one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Number two, I do want to bring up the fact that Nick Van Exel does have his degree now. He graduated the year before last, the same graduation ceremony as Sauce Gardner. So that's not an excuse anymore. Nick does have his degree.
Right.
So does UC alum and his Final Four teammate Eric Martin, who has done a hell of a job down there at South Carolina State with his first head coaching gig, who was rumored to be the original replacement for John Brannon, but there was some fallout around money, as usual with Cincinnati. So I'm just throw it out there. And John, why I'm being more critical than I typically am. I shared that with you in the private, chat while I'm in my feelings right now with my alma mater. But,
right.
I think that's part of it, man, because they have this tendency to not hire their own and to always go on the outside looking for people that don't have the same vested interests in the school and the community that some of us who are attached to. So I'm not sitting here calling for Wes Miller's, job right now, but I know that next year is definitely a put up or shut up year.
Can we hire Bob Huggins back?
That ain't gonna happen.
If it were only that simple.
Yeah, well then it's probably over for a long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're still feeling the effects of that. There's no doubt.
When's the last time we've
that.
even had really like a top 10 recruit? Especially with these these players don't want to go to UC.
Well,
who wants to go to UC? What name recognition do we have or
well,
have we had in the past 20 years
well,
that makes people even want to come here and play?
Wait, Kurt. Let me just throw this out there. So, no, the problem with West right now is he is getting 4 and 5-star recruits again now, or guys are at least putting UC in their top 5, top 10 again, where for a couple decades that wasn't happening no more. The problem is he's not producing now. First it was, I got to rebuild the program. I still got, John Brannon players that are Horizon League players that should be playing at Wright State or whatever. We gave you a mulligan a couple years ago, but like the two guys I just mentioned were, top 50, recruits. They got a McDonald's All-American, the number 15 ranked player in the entire country, Sean Abebe, coming in, next year, Rayvon was supposed to be a top 15 player, in America coming out of Taft. Like they are getting players. Tyler McKinley was another top 50, prospect. They have players there. They underachieve. Now, if you're viewing it from the standpoint of what we came up watching, no, there ain't no Kenyon Martin or Danny Fortson or, Steve Logan, DeMar, Ruben Patterson, all that. No, that not even close.
Those players were recruited, man. That's what I mean. We're not getting the same. We're not putting good teams together. I don't. That's when I look at UC. That's when I see when I watch them. Like, I mean, they're a decent team, but when you look at the teams that are in the tournament, like they are cohesive. It just looks like
I mean, they're
it
not
looks.
even Mick Cronin teams though right now. Like, there's no Sean Kilpatrick out there. There's no, Yancey Gates. There was a difference. And that's why I told people be careful what you wish for when people were running, Mick out of here. Ted said, does NIL change recruiting? Absolutely.
Are
But
these
like I
kids
said,
even selling jerseys? Like, come on now, outside of Cincinnati. That's what I
don't,
mean.
no, probably not. But I know I took my happy self down there and paid my $90 for them UC Jordan brand, shorts, and I kind of regretted it with the way this season turned out. But no, yes, Tez, it obviously changes it. But here's the thing: teams and schools like UC should not be using that as a detriment or as an excuse, because all it does now is give you the opportunity to do what used to happen under the table out in the open. There used to be a bag man at UC. All the UC guys that I've had on this program, I don't really get into that. I try to keep it about ball, but we brought it up to all of them. And what do, Big John? They start laughing because, it is. The only one that told the truth really was Tony Bobbitt. But, at the end of the day, yeah, it changes things. And then what Kurt said and Kenny Satterfield said one time, like, it was cool to go to UC back then. Like, they've never restored the cool factor, in my opinion, since Huggins left. There was a toughness factor when Mick Cronin was here. He knew what type of guys he could get, a Lance Stevenson, a Yancey Gates, SK, some of those guys like that at least brought it back to respectability. But the cool factor has been gone for a very long time, to be completely honest.
You know who we need? Denzel Washington.
Well, your man Alex Meacham brought in Anthony Anderson and Red, man.
Right.
I shouldn't have done that. No, since he wanted to be petty, I had to throw that out there. But nah, the cool factor is not there. They thought they were gonna bring it back just with the Jordan Jumpman, uniform. And like I said, that's cool, but
if I'm getting paid, send me somewhere warm. Send me to Duke and the Carolinas. You know what I'm saying? UNC. Send me somewhere like that.
Well, UNC ain't even UNC no more at this point.
Duke is holding on because Duke is Duke, but UNC ain't even holding on no more.
I want Hubert Davis to succeed up there, but I don't know if he's the guy to do so. But absolutely, NIL has. You know what it's done, Tez? It's changed it, and then it hasn't changed it. Because like I said, some people thought that was going to even the landscape, and I'm like, why would you believe that?
So quick question. I know we didn't have this conversation. This got something to do with it, but I remember we was talking about football schools and basketball schools.
Mm-hmm.
So with Florida winning, they have a history of being a football school. I'm asking questions. They have a history with being a football school. Now they have just as many national championships in basketball as they do in football. Are they one of those schools that are successfully a basketball school and a football school? Because now they have history of winning under Billy Donovan. They got history of winning under this new coach that's there now. And they ain't really did nothing in football in the past 10 or 15 years.
Okay, I'm gonna try to answer your questions directly as I can. You know, I've always talked down on University of Florida because I feel like their entire football history is made of two coaches, the old ball coach and Urban Meyer. They didn't do anything before or since. Um, the other championship they won was when uh, Steve Spurrier was a player there in the 50s or 60s.
Right.
Um, Okay, yes, you can give Florida the category as one of those schools that is usually able to field an above average football team and basketball team at the same time. It's such a small category of schools that can say that. That team up north used to be, one of them, and I would still say is I still think they've been the most consistent as far as basketball and football at the same time. I will give Michigan that. But Florida, it's just not many that you can name. And then, people always get in this argument with me when I say a school has to choose. Every school does have to choose who their breadwinner and their flagship athletic program is. It's not to say that you can't try to field a competitive, program in every sport. But if you asking me, even with that national championship in basketball, I know for a fact, and I can pull it up, the University of Florida still is going to spend more money on their football
Oh,
program
for
than they are
sure.
the basketball.
They are a Southern school. They are in the SEC. Of course, they're going to want their flagship program to be the football program. But for the past 10, 15 years, they've been winning more on the basketball side. Now, with the exception of when they had Urban Meyer there, yes. But he's been gone for a
They're
long
still
time.
they're
Tim
still a
Tebow.
football.
No, they're still a
Gross.
football. Look, I'm not debating you. They're still a football school. I'm just saying they, like you said, they are one of those schools that can field a good football team and a good basketball team. Now they
See,
haven't.
but I don't even think fans down there, and I don't know the younger generation down there, but I still don't think fans down there would confuse it either. And that's the point I make. The only reason I say that, I know you're not making this point, John, but UC fans will do this because I used to argue with Dowdy all the time. God rest his soul. And of course, he was biased because he played, football for UC. But it's like I don't see every time North Carolina or Duke goes to a bowl game, I don't see their fans losing their mindset. Oh, we're a football school now. Like
Well,
same thing in Kentucky.
Duke might win some games, but you already know where they bread is buttered. UNC has had chances and they have put together decent football teams. They have had guys like Lawrence Taylor and Julius Peppers walk through there and Gino Bernard, but they're still a basketball school. But when you actually have a hoop program winning national championships, we're not talking about a UNC team that's competing on a football level. Florida's basketball team was actually winning.
I'm listening to John, but I ain't see Tez put this in there. So I agree. It's not cool to play for UC. Who's gonna pay a UC player Skyline Chili?
Right. Yeah.
Um,
So
well,
you can say that, but Duke and UNC football ain't bringing home national championships.
no. Well, but on the flip side, what about this new movement in the SEC, which I love because the Big Ten obviously went 5-1 against the SEC in bowl games this year. I just want to throw that out there. College football past two national championships were won by the Big Ten Conference. Just want to throw that out there so y'all can save all that best conference in America stuff. I don't want to hear that no more at the start of this year. ESPN, you need to come up with a new tagline because that one ain't working. Okay, so anyway, what about this new trend in the SEC where to me, it looked like it's becoming a basketball conference. You had Alabama and Auburn and
Stop.
Florida all making these deep runs in the NCAA tournament.
Now I don't know where. Like I said, they probably been building it. I haven't been paying attention to it, but I don't know where Alabama came from. But Auburn has been decent to hoop for the past several years. Now I haven't been keeping up with Alabama basketball to tell you what they have been doing or what they haven't been doing.
They've been a top 10 ranked program in the country too.
Right.
That boy
Cool.
Sexton.
So yeah,
Beasting down there.
it's happening, man. Because kids like Kurt alluded to, kids want to go where they think it's cool, where it's warm, they can be seen. And some places up north and in the Midwest ain't that. Now you have some places where you can be seen.
No, Cal, I'm not claiming that team anymore. I'm just simply stating where the last two national champions have come from and what conference they're affiliated with, and it's not the SEC.
Well, yeah, man, the SEC has been, other than, and it's crazy, as shocking as it is, because usually when you talk about the SEC in basketball, you're talking about Kentucky, or you talk
or Florida,
or you talking about back in the day, you talk about the Lady Vols. You ain't talking about the men Vols.
Shamiqua Holesclaw,
about the Lady Vols, but yeah, man, I guess they've been doing some damage on the basketball side too. I guess.
Well, Auburn, making a run to the national championship, Final Four, all this. This is stuff that even Charles Barkley couldn't have dreamed about when he was at Auburn. But they're certainly not winning on the football field anymore. Cam Newton, to quote Charles Barkley, Cam Newton rolled in his grave right now. Bo Jackson rolling in his grave right now. This is not the Auburn teams of old.
Auburn, Alabama games.
But can you imagine, bro? Me and Al, we done talked about this. Having Bo Jackson, Charles Barkley, Frank Thomas, and Kevin Green all on the same campus at once. That's crazy.
That was something.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen, Cal. Your brother occasionally tricks me into defending certain Michigan players, outside of Braylon Edwards, who, I'll defend, but Marlon Jackson, and anyway, I'm not getting into that. So
I'll tell you, my only thing is you'll give all the other guys shout outs, but the one guy that you don't, and I don't understand why.
Charles Wilson?
I have explained to you many a time.
I know why, but it still don't make sense. But I get it.
I don't even want to hear
it.
You
can't be born and raised in the state of Ohio and cross that line and think that I'm going to give you respect for doing that.
But he's literally on the border, like literally on the border.
I went to school up there. I know how close Fremont is, but it's still Fremont, Ohio. They put a statue of Charles Wilson out in front of his high school stadium, and it's in Ohio.
I hear you.
Him and Desmond Howard will never live that down with me. I don't care what they do for everybody else. And Desmond's from Cleveland, so it's even worse. But
well, he's from Cleveland, so that he automatically whatever. But yeah.
Cal said, "Can we talk about Hunter Green?" Yeah, well, me and little bro went down there for opening day, and Hunter was mowing them down like he's been doing this whole year. Now, the part that pisses me off is they act like they can't hit when he's on the mound and don't give him no support. But it's fun to watch, man. Them triple digits is easy for Hunter to hit on the radar, and now he got a slider. If he had a curveball, oh my goodness. But honestly, I think he pitches too fast to do a curveball because even his slider is like 90 miles per hour. So, like, they say he got Jose Rijo vibe. Yeah, but we don't want them Jose Rijo injuries, though. Because Jose used to hit 97 on the gun regularly. Then he got hurt, man, and it was a smooth 88.
Oh, shit. Roland Chapman was giving us triple digits and ended up going to New York and winning something. So,
yeah, well, we got Hunter signed long term, so the Reds just have to quit making stupid errors. I heard Tito in there when I was watching TV before the show talk about it. Like, they had to quit doing bonehead errors and stuff. Sometimes I just think Ellie, man, he's so loosey-goosey, man. He does that by accident, but it's like, man, you need to lock in, but you can't tell a player how to go about doing their job because that loosey-goosey also produces a lot of exciting home runs, base running, and fielding that he does. Sometimes you got to take the good with the bad.
Right.
Well, fellas, I think we got everything that I wanted to talk about in this particular episode. I want to remind everybody to please make sure that you are subscribed to the Factual Opinions YouTube page as well as our social media pages on Facebook and IG. If you can't watch the live stream or YouTube episode, you can always listen on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. We want to thank the originator of the Factual Opinions brand, Mr. Kurt Cortez, for stopping through the Brown Bruce Wayne Big John.
Yes, sir.
I don't know where Nate is at, but shout out to him.
I just want to leave y'all with this, man. I'm out, man. Lakers in 5.
Uncle Shannon. Uncle Shannon say Lakers in 5. What do he say? WWE Royal Rumble.
I'm so tired of man.
Lakers in 5.
Right.
No, I'm with it. That's who I got, of course. So want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll be back really soon, try and do it better than next time.